Hi, this is Zach Mayer with the US Chartbreakers here at Zach's Traders Cafe for Wednesday, the 12th of November. Starting off with the S&P, which, surprise, surprise, has managed to build on the gap high that we had at the beginning of the week. And I suppose it's still in a bit of a resistance area, maybe 68.30 to 68.80, something like that. But the top of the channel there heading for 7,000 plus, now 7,015. And we are looking for that by the end of next month, especially while we stay on the right side of 6,800 as we did in yesterday's session. Moving along to the situation of the Nasdaq, and here, obviously a similar picture to, well, not obviously a similar picture, but it turns out to be a similar picture to that of the S&P, holding the top of the gap there, which is normally a good sign, 25,300, and looking to fill the gap up to 25,900. Through that, we should be hopefully off to the races, which in this case means the top of the April trend channel there, 26,100, and the late January resistance line there, 26,900. Let's call it 27,000, and 27,000 is what we are looking for by the end of the year, assuming that we don't actually get there even by the end of this month, which is perfectly possible given the rebound that we have. If there is a pullback, then the floor of the channel, 24,700, the area of the 50-day moving average, a contender, and hoping that we won't get anything lower than that. Moving on to the stocks, and starting off with Anbio, which I think we look at quite a lot. Here you can see that we've got a broadening triangle, or we have drawn in a broadening triangle. The markets closed above the rising 200-day moving average, which is a decent thing to do. That's around the $23 mark, and above $23, we're actually looking for as high as $40, top of that triangle by the end of next month. Probably the easiest thing to say here is that ideally we stay on the right side of $21, as that's recent broken resistance. Anything missing is that the RSI is still below neutral 50, even though we already have the end of day close above a rising 200-day line, which is a pretty strong signal. Next on the list is a situation called decent holding, and here we've got a broadening triangle base, or we think we have, and we've gapped up through the 50 and 200-day lines. Top of the triangle there, heading for $2. We're looking for that by the end of this month, especially while we remain above recent broken resistance around $1.45. So a nice setup there. eHome is next, and here you can see obviously on the left-hand side it hasn't been a great time for the shares, but we've had a decent break back above the old October support there at 89 cents, above that, looking for $1.20 by the end of this month, hoping that sharp turnaround yesterday will have follow through on it, which may do, especially given the way that, or if we can get the RSI back above neutral 50s, just below that at the moment. So hopefully the market will turn around. A new name for us coming up next, and it is Hotel 101. Here we've got another gap to the upside here for the shares. Rising trend channel there from the end of July. Top of the channel there heading for $9. We're looking for that by the end of this month, while we remain on the right side of $6, which was last month's peak. So hopefully that happens. Moving along to Lee Enterprises, and here not quite a broadening triangle base, but maybe we're assuming that it might be. The 200-day line there up at $7, and that's our target, hopefully by the end of next month. And we're looking for that, especially while we're above recent broken resistance at $5, and allowing down for an end-of-day close down below the 50-day line, which is now rising at $4.67, as the worst-case stop loss on that situation. The next is Ridgetech, and here you can see that we've got the shares basically blasting through our first target there, $2.35. Looks as though the top of the upper parallel of that channel is up at $3.80 or so, and above that, obviously, we're looking for a retest of that spike that we had back in March at $4.50. So the stop loss at the moment would be the old October resistance there around $3. So basically above $3, we're looking for $4.50 on Ridgetech. A requested stock now coming in the form of Super Microcomputer, and here you can see that it's a good time for the request in the sense that the shares are back at oversold, or the oversold area at RSI 30, and they're also just back at the floor of that rising trend channel from this time last year. You can argue exactly where the floor of the channel is, and you can also argue where the top of the channel is, but basically we're hoping that this is the bottom of the range, and we won't see any sustained price action but back below 37.50, which is the indicated floor of that rising trend channel. If there's an end of day close below that, then we might fear a move down to the $30 zone. On to the last few. The first one of the last few is coming up now, and it is Theravance, and here you can see that I couldn't resist this one, really gapping through into higher territory. The name of the game here is guessing where the top of the channel is. We're guessing that it's at $25, and we're looking for that obviously while we're above the old resistance, which was around $15.40. But let's maybe call the half of yesterday's range around $17 as the end of day close stop loss ahead of a potential move to $25. The next stock is Therapeutics MD, lots of biotech companies at the moment. Rising trend channel there from June. Top of the channel there looking at $2.20, and we're looking for that while we're above, especially while we're above recent broken resistance around $1.53. Maybe you allow down for the recent resistance of $1.46 as a stop loss if you can afford it. We've had an RSI 50 plus rebound, so looking good there. Finishing off with a new name, it looks like quite a dynamic situation, Velo 3D. And here we've got a classic triangle breakout. The level in question around $5.20, and above that looking for the top of the range, and actually higher than the top of the range, top of the channel there, as high as $9 by the end of next month. It's a punchy call, but the shares can actually do that if they want to, given they did a similar thing back from September to October. So above $5.20 up to $9 possibly on Velo 3D. That's it from me today. More updates tomorrow.